Good evening. I would like to call the Monday, March 16th, 2020 Dublin City Council meeting to order. Jenny, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Ludo? Here. Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Here.
Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Here.
Mr. Reiner?
Here.
Mr. Keeler?
Here.
Ms. Fox? Here. Mr. Peterson? Here.
General, would you please lead us in the pledge? Good evening. I am Dublin Mayor Chris Ambrose Grooms. Thank you all for joining us this evening via live stream. As I'm sure you know, actions are being taken at all levels for government to help minimize the community spread of the COVID-19 virus. We made some tough decisions last week to cancel several events. We are in continuous contact with our public health agency, Franklin County Public Health, and the State of Ohio Department of Health. We are closely monitoring the advice and direction of our governor and the President of the United States in order that we can slow and even reduce the spread of this virus in order to keep our public safe and healthy. To minimize the impact of this virus and to not overburden our healthcare systems, we will do all we can to keep you informed in this evolving situation. Please make the effort to understand and know what you can do to keep you, your family, and our community as healthy as possible by monitoring the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, State of Ohio Department of Health, Franklin County Public Health, and our very own city's website for the latest information. The City of Dublin has done extensive emergency management planning and training. To a great degree, we do this every day, and with every major event held in this city. Yes, this is different, and it will be much more challenging. The city manager will speak more to efforts taken in the upcoming actions. Continuity of government is important anytime we are in a disaster situation. Tonight's meeting is an example of that. While the city has closed its facilities to the public, we will still conduct council meetings as needed. We will live stream these meetings to ensure our public can monitor, and we will strive to implement technology in order that you can participate remotely as soon as our next meeting. The CDC has issued an order, and the governor of Ohio has modified the state's order today to reflect that there will be gatherings of no more than 50 people. That's down from 100 just earlier today. By the end of the governor's briefing, the federal government put out additional guidance, reducing this to just 10. Given this, our meeting agendas will be set in a way to postpone those issues that may be of such an importance to our public that many would want to attend in person. We will strive to keep our agendas limited to items that are more routine in nature and ensure essential services the city provides to its residents continue. You may have heard today of additional closings and that in-person voting will not occur tomorrow, but is postponed to a target date at this time of June 2nd. We will strive to keep you updated should that date change. As we are in the response phase of this pandemic situation, additional measures will likely be taken. Please make the effort to understand and know what you can do to keep you, your family, and our community as healthy as possible by monitoring the city's website and those of the previous mentioned public health agencies. As you are aware, we did cancel the live State of the City address, the St. Patrick's Day Parade, a street celebration that would have drawn hundreds, and the celebration of the Dublin's new pedestrian bridge. The city manager and I did record the State of the City, which, by the way, the city manager declared as excellent. And I agree, I hope you do as well. You can see this presentation online. Certainly the COVID-19 situation presents challenges, but we are well positioned to work our way through this as a community. Yes, you may have heard that our bridge now has a name, the Dublin Link, or the Link for short. We wish to thank everyone in the community who contributed ideas for the naming of the bridge. We received more than 1,400 entries. We took your suggestions and categorized them by the most frequent themes. Again, and as a result of your input, the bridge will now be called the Dublin Link, or the Link for short. Not only does this bridge link both sides of the river, but it also connects our past and our present. From historic Dublin to the new pedestrian park development, it allows our residents to engage even more with the Sauter River, which was the reason our founding fathers chose to settle here more than 210 years ago. A suspension bridge over the Sauter River was something that was first envisioned in the mid-1980s. It was part of a plan developed by the then Dublin Village Council, the Dublin Historical Society, and the Dublin Kiwanis Club. In 2007, Dublin City Council included a pedestrian bridge in a much grander form as part of an update to the community plan. But it wasn't until 2013, when Council adopted its capital improvements program, that the bridge, along with the future Riverside crossing, became a reality when it was included for funding. This accomplishment is a testament to everyone in this community. An incredible amount of work went into achieving this remarkable engineering feat, and I want to acknowledge and give credit to those who helped us to achieve this. But most importantly, I would like to thank you, the citizens of Dublin. This is your bridge. Long after all of us are gone, this bridge will serve as a surviving monument to everyone who lived here, worked here, and played here. I thank you all for the support that you give to the City of Dublin. I congratulate the project team, including architect Andre Studio, the engineer of record T.Y. Lin International, and the contractor Concosing Construction Company. Thank you all for your dedicated work in making our bridge a reality. I would also acknowledge our COSI STEM star, Deputy City Manager Megan O'Callahan, Paul Hammersmith, Bob Taylor, Infrastructure Engineer, and Jeannie Willis, Engineer Manager, for their work overseeing this project. This bridge is a one-of-a-kind suspension bridge which spans 760 feet with an S-shaped deck that reaches 173 feet tall at its peak. Even though we did not hold an opening celebration, we were able to get 3 of the 5 Dublin families who won the honor of crossing the bridge first to do so yesterday. Please join me in congratulating the Walsh family, the Nye family, and the Kaiser family. The Kalhusenvar and the Nayar families were selected as well, but were not able to attend. I am pleased to let you know that as of 9 a.m. this morning, the link is open to the public. We do hope the public will have an opportunity to enjoy this amenity in our community. I'd like everyone to be mindful of the fact that we did not conduct an opening ceremony in order to avoid a crowd gathering. We are still cautious of this. If you decide to visit the bridge, please exercise good judgment in maintaining social spatial distance and determine for yourself if visiting the link can or should happen for you at a later date. The bridge will be closed on occasion in the coming months as additional work will be conducted. We ask for your patience on this. We will hold a celebration of its opening at a future date. And now I will turn it over to City Manager Dana McDaniel for additional information.
Well, good evening, and thank you, Mayor. And I want to thank the leadership of those at the state and federal government, and to the health professionals at all levels, and those working to understand, provide guidance, and respond to the evolving COVID-19 situation. I want to thank you, our City Council, for your direction and also for your partnership this last week as we worked through this situation together and tried to make the decisions that had to be made. Thanks to our staff who are working tirelessly to respond to the challenges of this evolving situation while making the adjustments necessary in anticipation of the impacts of this situation going forward. I want to emphasize that this is an emergency situation as declared by the federal government and the state government. As the Mayor mentioned, we had made some tough decisions last week, but these seem to pale in comparison to those that have taken place in the last few days, limiting gathering. The implications on individual residents and our businesses are significant. Likewise, the challenges to us as an organization will be significant as well, as we'll need to adjust to what will be a new norm. We need to do this in order to best position ourselves to continue to provide essential public services as this continues to evolve over the coming weeks and months. And as I've shared with staff, while a lot of these decisions are made at the state and federal level, the friction of the execution of these decisions happens at the local level. And it's imperative that we as a local government and city are prepared to carry those out and to support those. To date, we have canceled all events the city controls to minimize gatherings of the public, shut down the necessary city facilities to protect staff and the public, taken action to ensure continuity of government. We plan to support voting, but as the Mayor mentioned, that has been postponed at least till June 2nd or unless otherwise advised. We put into effect our own pandemic influenza plan, and yes, we did have one on the books, and we've had a plan since 2011, and we've undertaken the activities to prepare for the next phase of operations. We've set up our Emergency Operations Center, or EOC as we call it, and it is ready for use but not yet been activated. We've established communications with the public with a primary focus on COVID-19 messaging and the decisions that are being done by the city. We've responded to citizen inquiries, and we've monitored critical information outlets from public health, state of Ohio, federal government, peer and partner agencies, and the business community, and we've coordinated with our peer and partner agencies on actions to be taken. Our priorities in this coming week are as follows. Number one, we're going to protect the public. We're going to continue to monitor the requirements and directives of the health agencies, both state and federal government, and reinforce messaging to the public. Second, we're going to protect staff and ensure their availability in the short and the long run. This is going to define what new normal is for us as a city operation. Now, we've seen many businesses and not-for-profits having to adjust as well. We're no different. We're all having to make that adjustment. The challenge for us is that we'll need to continue to provide essential services irregardless of the requirements for all of the social spacing and lack of gathering and so forth. Providing continuity of government will continue to inform and work with our city council as we are tonight. I fully suspect that we'll continue to have meetings as needed. The way in which we'll convey those meetings and provide interaction with the public is obviously going to have to change, but we'll adapt to that. We'll provide essential services to the maximum extent possible. So we'll continue to provide essential services like policing, dispatching, fire EMS, street operations, utility operations, refuse recycling and curbside collections, plan review services and inspections, and of course communication. And I want to emphasize that communication is key. Certainly you can go to our website and obtain a lot of information. There's a lot of good information out there by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, or the CDC, the Franklin County Public Health Department. You can sign up for Dublin 911 smart notifications or the Franklin County Alert System, and we've added a new, an extra button or a space on our Go Dublin app that's specifically labeled coronavirus, and you can go to the Go Dublin app, and that will take you directly to our website and to other information as well. So we need to keep all these functions going, and we also need to have the support staff available to ensure that they can function. The next thing we'll do is we'll prepare for future operations, and we anticipate that the public's needs will change. This is an evolving situation. We'll need to focus on our most vulnerable in the future, and we may need to lean on and or support other agencies as may be required. And of course, we're going to need to manage our own resources so they're available for the long run. So what I'm pointing out here is that this situation is an emergency situation. I personally worked in the emergency management system, as have my peers and as has our staff, for a long time. The city is well trained and versed in emergency management and the National Incident Management System framework. And we will work on this on a daily basis, just as we would if we had a flood, a tornado, a blizzard, a hazardous chemical spill, etc. We recognize this is different, as are all emergency and disaster situations. A pandemic unfolds over a longer period, stays for a longer period, and will probably have longer impacts. This situation will not be a sprint, hopefully a short-run event and not a half marathon or a marathon. But nonetheless, it's not a sprint, so we have to staff and operate that way. Therefore, I will be declaring an emergency in the city of Dublin under Chapter 36 of our codified ordinances. The reasons I'm doing this are as follows. First, that we continue to provide the critical services needed to support our public and our democracy. This requires that essential services and essential employees be available to work, and this is a vast majority of our workforce. Second, it may be necessary due to social distancing and loss of personnel due to illness and other reasons that I may need to suspend bargaining unit agreements and the city's class and compensation plan as approved by City Council. The idea here is to give us and our employees more options regarding work from home, keeping employees on paid status so they can be recalled, canceling leaves, and other possible scenarios. Third, this will also enable emergency purchasing of supplies should that be necessary. Fourth, declaring an emergency period will best position the city to receive outside resources and or reimbursement for costs incurred under emergency conditions that may be made available by the state and federal government for which the city of Dublin may have a role in obtaining or distributing. We'll be tracking all our costs associated with this event in order that the city be in position to recover those costs if that ever becomes a possibility. We need to start tracking those as soon as possible, and that needs to coincide with that of the state and our own declarations. And further direction will be provided on an as-needed basis. I want to assure you, though, that as I declare this state of emergency, I will work with our city council and I will work within the confines of the revised charter and Chapter 36, because I need to report to and respond to my 7 bosses, and they're going to be part of this and a partnership in this process. So I want to assure everyone that that will be the case. So I expect to issue this as soon as tomorrow. And thank you for the opportunity to have the opportunity to address you with this, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
General, we certainly are blessed by your background in the military in dealing with emergency situations, dealing with crises, and dealing with I have heard you say so many times, plans are great till the first bullet flies, and that's where we are today. And we are grateful to have you as our general now that the first bullet has flown. So thank you for your steady hand and what you're doing to protect us all.
Thank you.
Okay, we will get on to the business at hand this evening. We have a consent agenda that contains meeting minutes from February 10th, 24th, and March 2nd, some legislative authorities for liquor permits. Is there a motion on the floor to take these 7 action items as a consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Ludo. Jenny, would you please call roll?
Mr. Peterson? Yes. Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Ms. Fox? Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 06-20.
Rezoning approximately 3.47 acres east of Highland Croy Road, south of Mitchell DeWitt Road from PUD Planned Unit Development District, Oak Park Sub-Area E, to PUD Planned Unit Development District, Oak Park Sub-Area F, for the future development of up to 12 single-family homes and a 0.66 acre of open space.
I would like to make a motion that this would be postponed and would appear on our April 27th council meeting. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Jenny, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Ms. Fox? Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Very good. First readings, ordinance 09-20.
Amending Section 150.231 of the City of Dublin Codified Ordinance regarding property maintenance.
Is there an introduction? Thank you, Ms. Ludo. Staff report, Jenny.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. As you mentioned, this is ordinance 09-20. This is the first of several items that resulted from the Public Service Committee that was held on February 18th, where the committee members and staff met to discuss property maintenance code and enforcement actions that currently, and practices that are currently underway in the city. This outcome of this discussion was the recommendation of the committee to adopt the most recent International Property Maintenance Code from 2018. And that the International Property Maintenance Code is a model ordinance that provides guidance about property maintenance and is adopted by cities nationwide. So with that, staff is recommending approval, review and approval of this with additional language to ensure in the future that we are always operating under the most current version of this, so not requiring city council action with further amendments. So with that, staff is recommending approval of this at the second reading.
Very good, thank you. Council, questions? I guess I should take a moment to explain for the 12 people that are likely watching this live stream. We are social distancing ourselves from this evening. All council members are present. But we've tried to maintain in any of our staff that are with us here this evening at least a minimum of 6 feet apart. So our conversation may be a little bit awkward, but we're trying to hold true to best practices. So that being said, are there council questions or discussion?
Yeah, section 101.3, number 2, existing conditions within the structure built before March 1st, 1959 are listed on the National Register of Historic Structures are exempted from this code. To me, that statement's not clear. So I could interpret that as meaning that if the structure, when it was built before March 1st, 1959, had those conditions, it would be exempted. So to give an example, if a structure was built in, say, 1901 it was built before March 1st. Conditions existing now, do you follow me?
I do. We can look into that. We've conferred with our legal counsel on that, so we can look at if that needs to be clarified further with the second reading. We can definitely look into that and get back to you on that.
Very good.
Okay.
I think that's a great question, because one of the reasons we were looking at this appearance code was to help preserve any degradation of our historic properties. So it's going to be really important that it achieves that.
Okay.
Any other council comments or discussion?
I'll just make one other comment. I know that the recommendation is to bring some further requests forward to the Planning and Zoning Commission. So I just want those who are interested in this particular topic to understand that we are looking at vacant properties, some other specifics in the code, and definitely the historic district area and how to make sure that we don't have properties that just go into demolition by neglect. So it is not off the radar, but that was a good call on that, Mr. Keeler.
Thanks.
Anything else? At this time, I would normally ask for public comment, but since we don't have any public here this evening, I do want to remind everyone to please, Jenny Rouse, our planning department's email addresses are on our website, and we do welcome any comments that you might have can be made via through our online process, and we will include those. And again, this is a first reading. It will be heard again on April 13th, so we will not be voting on this evening. Okay. Next, we have introduction public hearings on Resolution 18-20.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Rev 1 Ventures.
I'll introduce it.
Thank you, Ms. Ludo. Colleen?
Good evening. First off, we have Tom Walker, who is President and CEO of Rev 1 Ventures, and Christy Campbell, who is the COO. I will ask them to come to the guest podium. This is our annual contract with Rev 1. It is a $200,000 contract. For review, this is part of the Third Frontier Initiative, with Rev 1 being our regional partner in the Third Frontier program. They facilitate and promote all of those entrepreneurial networks in Dublin. We've also attached for your review the end of the 2019 report so that you can see all of the investments that were done by Rev 1, but also specific to just Dublin companies, Dublin residents for the year, and also to date, since we have been partnering with them since 2013. If you look through that, you can see some of our companies featured, including UpDocs, Healthy Roster, Off the Beaten Path Coffee, which was someone that was a company that was started at the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, and you can see the Dublin return on investment over time is calculated there. And I'm available to answer any questions, as are Tom and Christy.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments from council?
Are we going to have a little update, or what?
Sure.
Happy
Do
to.
you have an update for us?
Good evening, council. Thank
question.
you for the time. It's always a pleasure to be before you. And, just a few weeks ago, many of you were able to tour our facility at Kinnear. Given what's going on, that seems like a lifetime ago now, but we really appreciated having you at the facility. Thank you for your support. You really help us deliver the services to high-growth entrepreneurs here in the region, not just Dublin, but also Central Ohio. Every dollar you've provided to Rev 1, the companies we've helped here in the region have delivered $76 back. So the impact has been really significant. I thought I'd give just a brief update with the pandemic issue that we're all facing. A couple of the companies that we've helped support here in the Dublin region are really, they're seeing an increase in service because they are digital health companies, and they have grown strong enough here and getting large enough market share that they're seeing an increase in their requests for services. And so that includes UpDocs and Healthy Roster that Colleen mentioned. So we're making a real impact, and we appreciate your support. I'd like to offer the podium to Christy, our COO, to share a few results.
Sure, and thank you all for having us here. Just want to talk a little bit about the broader impact to the region, and obviously more specifically the work here. So, As you know, we've been very focused on building infrastructure to date, and since that work began, we've invested more than $53 million in over 115 companies to date. And then if you look just in Dublin, more than 40 companies have leveraged our startup studio, and those companies have generated over $106 million in revenue and $90 million in capital. And together, just in Dublin, they've created more than 345 new jobs. So the infrastructure is really, really important because most communities don't have the expertise or the capital to bring together to support high-growth potential companies. And so what we've built over time can be leveraged by entrepreneurs across the region. And beyond that infrastructure, another thing that's become more evident and more important to the region, and even with the recent pandemic, is having really a baseline playbook for services and how to think about starting, building, growing your business. And that playbook we call our Startup Studio, and now it's leveraged by the City of Columbus, Franklin County, other partners across the community, whether that be incubators, accelerators, co-working spaces. All of that we make available to them through programming, whether in person or online, or through the direct client work with the companies that we work with throughout the community, or through our Innovation Center down on Kinnear. So we thank you again for your support for our important work.
Well, thank you very much. Questions?
Yeah, I thank you very much for hosting us. I know, as you mentioned, several of us had an opportunity to come spend some time with you. It's an impressive facility and even a more impressive program. One of the things that I took away from there was just how many public-private partnerships that are going on in ways that traditionally maybe we wouldn't have seen a decade ago for a variety of reasons. And probably no doubt when we come out on the other end of this, we're going to see innovation and partnership in ways that we can't even imagine now. So I know we look forward to continuing that work, and I'm sure as we move forward, one of the things that we talked about in our updated economic development plan was continue to find even additional ways, as we talked about when we were there, to support startup and growth companies here in Dublin. So we appreciate that and look forward to that as we move forward.
Thank you for the comments.
Thank you.
I have a feeling there'll be no shortage on the other side of this for new forms of creativity, new products that will become critical that we have not yet contemplated. And the startup business is going to be one that's going to really be propelled to a new level on the other side of this, I would imagine. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for your partnership. And as Kathy said, we hope to together look for new ways that we could partner even more in the future and bring some more of, attract that talent to here to Dublin. So
We look forward to that. Thank you.
very good. Is there a motion on the floor with respect to Resolution 1820?
So moved.
And a second? Second. Thank you. Vinnie, please call.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Ms. Fox? Mr. Reiner? Mr. Peterson? Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 19-20.
Accepting the lowest and best bid for the 2020 shared use path and parking lot maintenance.
Very good. Mr. Hammersmith.
Good evening, members of council. On February 25th, 5 bids were received and publicly opened for the 2020 shared use path and parking lot maintenance programs, which provide for maintenance of various shared use paths and several city parking lots. The engineer's estimate for these programs combined were $340,000, which is the same as the amount budgeted in the CIP and various line accounts included in the staff report. Chemcode Incorporated submitted the lowest and best bid in the amount of $277,913.40. The work for these programs is expected to commence in either April or May of this year and is expected to be complete by the end of October. Staff has thoroughly reviewed the bid submitted by Chemcode, and our previous experience with Chemcode has certainly been favorable. Staff recommends council approval of resolution number 19-20, accepting as lowest and best the bid of Chemcode Incorporated in the amount of $277,913.40. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Very good, thank you. Council questions? You likely know the question that I will ask. It's the question I always ask, is that can we receive updates on a running total of where we are with respect the budget. This one, I know we have another one coming up here in a few minutes. It went slightly over. This one's considerably under. So it's always nice to
Absolutely.
be mindful of where we are in the budget overall. So I appreciate that. There a motion on the floor with respect to Resolution 1920?
So moved.
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Reiner. Jenny, would you please call roll?
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson? Yes. Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner? Yes. Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, were you going to stay right there? Don't go anywhere. Resolution 2020.
Accepting the lowest and best bid for the 2020 to 2022 pavement marking program.
I'll introduce it.
Thank you.
And also on February 25th, 3 bids were opened and read publicly for the 2020 to 2022 pavement marking services program, which provides for the maintenance of all of our pavement markings on our public roadways throughout Dublin. This is a 1-year contract with the option for 2 years of renewal if the work is performed in satisfaction of the city engineer. The engineer's estimate for these services in 2020 is $123,500. The budgeted funds within the operating budget were $125,000. Griffin Pavement Marking, or Pavement Striping Incorporated, submitted the lowest and best bid in the amount of $128,972.50. Since the execution of this work is based on unit prices, we can tailor the scope of the work to be within the budgeted funds for this year. So we are not concerned about that bid exceeding the budgeted funds. Staff has thoroughly reviewed the bid submitted by Griffin Pavement Striping Incorporated, has determined it to be complete and acceptable cost to perform the specified work for these services. In our previous experience with Griffin, who has actually worked for us for several years, including our last pavement marking services program, has been certainly favorable. Staff recommends approval of resolution number 20-20, accepting as lowest and best the bid of Griffin Pavement Striping Incorporated in the amount of $128,972.50. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Council questions?
Just one. On the optional renewal, is it the same price, or is there a change in price?
It's based on their unit prices, so in our budgeted funds are basically the same, I believe, next year as they are this year, or will be.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Anything further? Hearing none, Jenny, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson? Yes. Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Resolution 2120.
Appointing members to City of Dublin boards and commissions.
I'll introduce it.
Thank you, Ms. Ludo. And I'm going to turn it over to Vice Mayor DeRosa for comments.
Thank you very much. We're pleased to bring forth several folks for first-time appointment and some renewals. So I have a few, so I'll take a few minutes to read those. We recently completed our annual assessment of available positions on the boards and commissions and conducted interviews to fill those vacancies. I want to thank, once again, we had just wonderful, wonderful applicants, and we appreciate everybody raising their hand and continuing to contribute. And I'm pleased to bring forward tonight the following new appointments for the council consideration, all of which are going to begin on the 1st of April. Jim Snyder and Gary Gasson for 3-year terms on the Community Service Advisory Commission. Sandra Praskarsik for a 2-year term on the Dublin Arts Council. And Kathy Eberhardt to a 3-year term on the Records Commission. I'm also pleased to bring forth the following reappointments. These will also become effective the 1st of April. Warren Fishman for a 4-year term on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Kathleen Bryan for a 3-year term on the Architectural Review Board. Sasha Goyle to a 3-year term on the Board of Zoning Appeals. Alice Kanonkoff to a 3-year term on the Community Service Advisory Commission. Bob Bowers to a 3-year term on the Personnel Board of Review. Bill Root and David Saylor, each to a 2-year term on the Tax Board of Review. And Rick Schreederman and Lynn Reddy, each to a 2-year term on the Bridge Park New Community Authority. We thank everybody for their continued work and dedication to the community. So I bring these forth. I guess we need a motion?
We will.
Second?
Mr. Reiner and Ms. Fox.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Very good, thank you. Okay, on items of other on our agenda this evening, we have Art in Public Places Program Site Selection. We have a staff report from Matt Ehrman, and he'll be joined by David Guion, our Dublin Arts Council Director. So please.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. In partnership with the Dublin Arts Council, works of public art are regularly commissioned. As you are aware, the Public Services Committee of Council has provided its final edits for the Public Art Master Plan, which will be coming forward to the City Council for near future for its adoption. In the meantime, the Dublin Arts Council is here this evening to present recommended options for the site selection of the next piece of art for your consideration. As outlined in the staff report in your packet, several criteria are considered as part of the process for the site selection, which was adopted by City Council in 2015, all of which involved representatives of the Dublin Arts Council and city staff, and has been reviewed by the Dublin Arts Council Board of Directors. Mr. David Guion from the Dublin Arts Council is here this evening to present the process and considerations given to each site. Following the presentation, staff is seeking council selection of one of the sites and authorization to implement the artist selection process for the next public artwork. So with that, I'll turn it over to David.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to just start my presentation by providing an important update from the Arts Council. For the well-being of our guests and students, artists, staff, and board, Dublin Arts Council has closed the Dublin Arts Center to the public. Our dedicated staff is working remotely and is accessible via email and voicemail. Dublin Arts Council affirms that art is essential, and so is #Flatten the Curve, a concerted effort to minimize the impact of COVID-19. In an effort to support extended families who are looking for creative outlets, we continue to encourage interaction with our public art cell phone tour and our geocaching-inspired river boxes by getting people out into nature while emphasizing and adhering to the standard precautions and social distancing. We're creating an action plan for the coming days and weeks to encourage creativity and to inspire and connect our community. Examples include a web page with art projects to be done at home, a creative challenge to share on social media. We will also continue to promote mindfulness, community well-being, and combat isolationism through the arts as part of our Art and Wellness Initiative. Like many organizations, businesses, and individuals, Dublin Arts Council anticipates a substantial loss of revenue that will impact our ability to continue offering engaging, free programming for the community. We are currently strategizing, creating potential financial models, and are researching options for creative funding from Small Business Administration, the Ohio Arts Council, the Columbus Foundation, and our corporate sponsors, among others. I believe we need the arts now more than ever to remind us of our better selves and to help us support each other with creativity and compassion. We call on the public sector and the private sector to ensure that arts organizations are included in relief packages for small businesses. We will continue to uphold Council's 2035 framework plan, where quality of life is one of 4 pillars. We will need your help to continue to support the arts as an essential dimension of community wellness, especially during this time of uncertainty and eventual recovery. We are honored to continue to serve those who live, work, visit, play, and learn in Dublin, and remain dedicated to our mission to engage the community, cultivate creativity, and foster lifelong learning through the arts. So now I'll begin my presentation. For this evening's discussion, the City of Dublin and Dublin Arts Council staff are asking Council to select the site for the next site-specific permanent public artwork to add to our award-winning permanent collection. Once a site has been selected, the process will take over an approximate 2-year period until the artwork is installed. We hope to leave this evening with authorization to proceed with a designated site so that we can begin the artist selection process. We'll go on to the next slide.
Bear with me. working before. Pardon me.
That's okay. Dublin Arts Council and City of Dublin staff recommend the following for investment of encumbered city hotel motel tax funds for public art commissions. Project 1, currently proposed for siting, would be commissioned for $150,000 in 2020 and would be completed in 2022. Once Project 1 is underway, Dublin Arts Council and City of Dublin staff will move forward anticipating utilization of the new Public Art Master Plan to begin the process of selecting and commissioning a new Project 2 artwork in 2021 with council's separate approval. The remaining $150,000 balance of encumbered city hotel motel tax funds would be used for this purpose. By the end of 2021, another $150,000 in hotel motel tax will have accumulated for public art. Dublin Arts Council and City of Dublin staff will then move forward in the 2022 with the process of a new Project 3 artwork under council's separate approval. I'd like to talk just briefly about criteria. A team of 4 staff members from Dublin Arts Council and City of Dublin visited a number of potential sites for Dublin's next large-scale commissioned artwork in October, and are bringing you 3 strong suggestions from which to choose. Each site was reviewed and measured against a comprehensive set of criteria. The minimum criteria for an art and public places project site is that it be accessible to all, considerate of public safety, and feasible and safe for the installation of artwork. Understanding that some sites might satisfy some selection criteria but not all, and that equal geographic distribution between permanent artworks is desirable, ideal locations for art and public places projects should include but not be limited to the following. Visibility, highly visible, highly trafficked, and easily accessible areas such as city parks, the interior and exterior of city-owned buildings, major roadways and thoroughfares. An educational opportunity, locations that are walkable to provide the viewer with 360-degree access to the eventual artwork, and educational components of the collection such as informative signage and the Dublin Art and Public Places cell phone tour. Locations with historic significance to Dublin and/or residents of the Dublin area. Discovery, locations where public art might not be expected or can be discovered by the viewer, such as trails, bike paths, and unique areas of city parks. Locations should be city-owned property. Project-specific, locations that lend themselves to a specific project, audience, or desired form of public art. A sense of place, locations that, when activated by art, create a strong sense of place. Now to the potential sites. So based on the selection criteria, application of best practices in the siting of public art, considering geographic distribution of artworks, and day-to-day knowledge of Dublin's parks and public spaces, City of Dublin and the Dublin Arts Council staff recommend in alphabetical order the following 3 potential sites for Dublin's next site-specific large-scale permanent artwork. Emerald Fields, ML Red Tribune Nature Reserve, and the Dublin Community Pool North renovation in Earlington Park. I'll present the information about each site and then open it up for questions. The first site is Emerald Fields. Emerald Fields Park is a 33.8-acre park located at 4040 Wyandotte Woods Boulevard and is home to myriad sports fields, play areas, and a recreation path. The site is accessible to all, fits criteria with regard to public safety, and is feasible for the artwork installation. Visibility, an open area that could accommodate one or a series of sculptures. The park is on the east side of the river and is not close to any other public art sites. Visibility opportunities include the park entrance at a meadow, the existing water tower, and the playground area at Summit View. Educational opportunity. Landscape is varied and includes wetland, meadows, and woodland. Water conservation could be explored via a water tower mural. An expanded exploration of energy conservation could take place given the wind and electric elements found in the park. Spaces lend themselves well to a study of pollinators or to walking trail series. Abundant sports fields could inspire a visual exploration of health and motion. Discovery, artwork could be discovered in a drive-by sense from Summit View. On foot, visitors walking the park and playground, users could happen upon the artwork. City-owned property. The park is city-owned, and consideration must be given to neighbors whose backyards are looking at the park's green space. Project-specific. The green space is used for cricket, and the park experiences great diversity in visitors and surrounding residents. There is a fully accessible playground in the park, and a senior living community is nearby. A sense of place. Pockets of trees within the park speak to conservation of nature. Circular seating around a baseball diamond is very visible to the public, and there are wetlands at the park's border, gardens and bird boxes. Additional input regarding the site, sand, volleyball, and tennis courts may be added, so we would need to work around those planned additions. The next site is the ML Red Trabue Nature Reserve. Steps away from Carr Middle School, the ML Red Trabue Nature Reserve is a 90-acre haven for nature lovers. Located at 6835 Avery Millfield Drive and 6566 Post Road, the park includes bluebird boxes and vernal pools that are home to amphibians. The park is best known for its boardwalk and a pond perfect for fishing. It's also home to the Fleming Cabin, built in 1865. The site is accessible to all and is visited frequently by seniors from nearby assisted living facilities. The site meets criteria for public safety. Pathways are adequate for artwork installation purposes. Visibility. The site is not tremendously visible from public traffic, but that could add to its potential for discovery. The pond is indeed a hidden treasure. For an educational opportunity, this site is a nature preserve and hosts an arboretum. Ponds and streams could inspire wetland education, and artwork could build awareness and encourage preservation of trees, other flora and fauna. As in terms of historic significance, through art, the Fletcher Cabin or the Red Trabue story could be explored. In terms of discovery, areas for discovery include creeks, ponds, trails, the bike path, and opportunities for hidden work off the trail. It is city-owned property, and city staff with expertise in horticulture and nature education would be consulted to protect species and the environment. Project-specific. Ideas include individual or a series of installations, environmental theme, suburban fishing, utilizing natural materials from the site in the art form. In terms of a sense of place, it is a natural respite within the city. Inspirations could include nature, preservation, the pond, trails, artwork inspired by running or walking, and the stream and water flow. The boardwalk at the pond could provide a unique space for artwork. The last is the Dublin Community Pool North. After serving the Dublin community for nearly 30 years, Dublin Community Pool North, located at 5660 Dublin Shire Drive, is ready for a major renovation. The pool serves the community as a recreation hub in summer and also hosts swim meets among teams from neighboring communities. Current site considerations include the renovation or replacement of the pool, as well as updates to the leisure pool, lap pool, and main bathhouse. The site is accessible to all, is considerate of public safety, and is feasible for the installation of the artworks. The artist would work with the project architects on artwork concept and design. In terms of visibility, the new pool will have high visitor traffic. In terms of an educational opportunity, swimming and movement could be explored, as well as hydrodynamics. In terms of discovery, a possible underwater trail and other opportunities for discovery would be based on where the artwork is located within the pool complex. City-owned property, the site provides a good opportunity to integrate artists early in the construction, a 21st century public art best practice. Site is in a neighborhood, and consideration and input from neighbors will be essential. Project-specific inspirations and ideas include a splash pool or buildings that are activated with art, or exploring hydrodynamics artistically. In terms of a sense of place, integrating artwork, especially interactive, could enhance the sense of place for pool visitors. An artist could explore the Bear Run site or watershed as well. So in conclusion, we have identified 3 very strong sites, each with multiple sources of artistic inspiration, and hope you'll provide us with authorization this evening for one site so that we may begin the artist selection process for Dublin's next site-specific public artwork. Sites for public artwork projects to begin in 2021 and 2022 will be brought before council for separate consideration. So I'm happy to answer any questions. We're happy to answer any questions.
Very good, thank you. Questions, comments from council?
A couple of comments. You mentioned the North Pool when you said that it has potential for utilizing art within the architectural design of the pool. So you're thinking, let's just say if it's a splash pool or a water spray, that the artwork is within the pool.
Yeah, I mean,
Something like that, is
Yeah,
what you're
working
saying.
directly with the architect or the designers to make that
Right,
happen.
that would be unusual.
Yeah.
It's interesting, each of the places have a unique difference
Yes.
on how it's appreciated.
Yeah.
My
they're very
first
different.
thought was that the Treview would allow more discovery, because I think it is a
Mm-hmm.
hidden gem, and so it would draw people there. But then if you're thinking about integration and interactivity,
Yeah.
then artwork within the pool makes for an interesting
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
Emerald Park is another one, but I think those last two
Mm-hmm.
tend to give some serious consideration, so very interesting. And then the second piece of art in this recommendation, right now, we're just talking about the first work of art.
That's right,
That would be. And the second
2020.
one comes back as to whether or not we do it, when we do it, where we do it. That's
Mm-hmm.
later on, right? Okay. My thoughts.
Matt, if there were not a piece of artwork if the North Pool was not the selected site for this, what kind of discovery and interactive things would be present there regardless of whether or not that was the chosen site?
As far as architectural discovery, the layout, the landscaping, and so forth, there's quite a bit in the latest design that gives you a sense of place, no matter where you are in the facility itself. It is a very large, open area, but the layout of the pools themselves are separated by a series of landscaping to give you that cordoning off feeling without creating that vacant line of sight that so many parents desire. So the whole pool complex design right now is in kind of that mode of design. We have just recently seen the latest renderings of where we are. So, I guess that's the best I could describe that for you.
And I'm assuming in the play area for the little ones, there's, I don't know if they're flowers or fish or whatever kind of, there's lots of colors and textures and shapes in that area.
There is the capability of that, to incorporate that into the design of the pool or the deck feature itself. To date, we haven't gotten to that finite detail,
Okay.
but sure, that's a possibility.
So Matt, what about during times when there are swim meets or people who are non-pool pass holders? Would the artwork still be accessible to those folks if it was at the pool?
Yeah, one of the unique parts of this design is if you're familiar enough with that pool and the history of the pool, and we have swim meets, we have to close the rest of the leisure pool because they are one pool, they're connected, and we want focus on the competition area. This design separates the competition area from the leisure space itself. So as people are there and throughout the facility, we'll be able to keep the remainder of that facility open. So I would suggest that, yeah, it would be available to everybody there.
Even if they're not pool pass holders?
Yes.
Okay.
Matt, the Red Treview is such a lineal, interesting path. It already starts all the way down here and then runs all the way up under Muirfield Road. And there's just a lot of really nice possibilities along that path. It has its own ponds and it has its own forested areas. And there's, the suggestion that it might have something to do with fishing or running or, something along a sports thing, sort of I find intriguing. The pool area, I think, is interesting according to the idea of making it something that enhances it. But it's a sort of a destination in itself, and it's not really that visible. And we are spending a great deal of money to really build a pretty fantastic pool site. And the third site, I think, is sort of a little bit out of the way. I don't know if it gets that much traffic. I go down that road frequently, but it's sort of out there. And we've put a lot of money into enhancing that too. So I don't know. Personally, I'd lean towards the Red Trabue suggestion.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time at Red Trabue, just with kids having sports over at Carr. And in between sports, you tend to wander around and you go back through there. So we've spent a lot of time there with the kids. I just think it is a fascinating little place. I would be really supportive of Red Trabue. I think all of the locations are actually really interesting. I do think the pool is sort of a, destination feature on its own. And I like, I like Emerald Fields as well. That to me is a place where it can be very active when there's people around, whereas Red Trabue to me feels a little bit more pensive. Those are just sort of the feelings that are evoked in me when I go to both of those different parks. So I would probably lean on one of those two versus the pool. That's just my personal thought.
Craig?
If you just looked at a map of Dublin and the distribution of all of this, and you didn't have the sites you've offered,
Right.
there's a glaring hole right where Red Trabue is, where there is no
Right.
art. And when you talk about, I've been back in, I used to live closer over to that park, and we spent a lot of time back there. If there is something there that would draw people to go check it out because of the new art, I think that that's kind of a value of what the art in public place is intended to do. My concern about the pool, we're already putting a pretty significant financial commitment to the pool, and I think that it is. People expect a pool. They wouldn't expect also a piece of public art. It's that destination. So I think I like the Red Trabue Preserve the most, given the geographical layout of all the other projects. The last one you did was the Feather, right? And that was over, that's over on the other side of the river. So I think Red Trabue would serve the most goals, and really, if you put something cool back in there, people will go, they will not only discover the art, they will go discover Red Trabue Park.
Exactly.
Which I think could be a really valuable thing to do.
I would think there would be many other opportunities at the pool for art that I would say may not be quite so sophisticated. To me, Red Trabue is a better fit, to me, for a demographic sweet spot. Again, the demographics are very different between the two, and I think there are opportunities at the pool to incorporate artistic expressions, but not necessarily to this scale.
Right. In thinking about the two of them, and I agree, I think we have a gap at Red Trabue, but most importantly, I think what I like about Red Trabue is that it is an undiscovered place. Many people haven't found it. And it gives us an opportunity to open up the art to something more unique than a single piece of art. You have this long piece. You could discover art all along the way. It has so many elements. It meets, more importantly, most of the criteria here, maybe more than the pool. I think we have art in some active athletic fields already. So this is a little different, and so that would be my preference, would be Red Trabue.
Thank you.
I agree with the comments. I very much appreciate you bringing forward the pool idea, because, I mean, one of the things that I think we've talked a lot about is helping the youth discover art and really get excited about art. So I'm intrigued by that idea, because I have no idea what they would come up with.
Sure.
And when they're discovering that new pool, I think there's something there. That said, there's going to be a lot of discovery going on at the pool. So, Matt, the current splash pad will remain, right? So is that still the case with the current?
That's correct.
The design? So So we won't necessarily have a lot of sort of new things for the kids there in that regard, as I've seen the latest layout of that.
The
right?
newest additions for younger kids is the wading pool itself, and then the shallow area of the leisure pool is more like a step down, giving kids about 6 inches of water, about 20 feet into the pool. So it gives them and parents the ability to interact better. But yeah, the spray pad will remain the same, given its very young age and very functional. We didn't want to replace it.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. So I was intrigued by that. I too very much like Red Treview Park. I think the arboretum there and all that has just blossomed. That's for you, John. It has just blossomed it's just fabulous. And if so, there's opportunities to have art through there. It makes sense. So, did the Arts Council have a preference?
The board had a preference with Red Treview, yes.
Well, that was their
Yes,
preference?
that was their,
Okay,
that was their winner.
that would work for me too. Thanks.
Thanks.
Any other comments? You know, I with the North Pool, I am intrigued by that, but I'm also a proponent of waiting until we have something built and see how it's used and see what areas lend themselves to engagement and things like that. So I think on the pool, I would prefer to wait for it to be built and see what felt like a great space for public art, and then possibly consider public art there. You know, there, as Greg mentioned, there are a couple of glaring holes in public art spaces that Emerald Fields, although it's on the very edge of our city, there certainly is room there. But was our last installation the Feather Point?
Yes,
So our most recent installation of art is in very close proximity to where the Emerald Fields
yes,
location is.
that's correct.
So I think we are communicating that we are working to fill the void in that area.
Right, right.
I don't know that we need to fill it with consecutive art installations. I am very intrigued by the Trabue Preserve, and just the history of Red Trabue himself.
Yes. Yeah, it's
And being the outdoorsman writer for the Dispatch for so many years,
Yeah.
and just being a huge proponent of nature and engaging and, you know, wildlife and all that has to offer. So I think I would probably be supportive of the nature preserve as well, and, you know, really taking inspiration from all that park means.
Yeah, great, great. Thank you for all your comments. This is really wonderful that you're thinking this way, so.
Well, we will need a motion that would name the successful site. So,
I would move that we name Red Treview the site for the next art installation in public places.
very good. I will second that motion. So we will look for the scheduled project and authorize the initiation of the artist selection process, and look forward to that. So, very good. Jenny, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Fox? Yes. Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. Give our best to your board. Okay, next we have the Sweetwater's Master Plan for the library. So, Ms. Roush.
Good evening. This is a request for review and approval of an amendment to the master sign plan for the library, the Columbus Metropolitan Library, the Dublin branch, and the downtown parking garage to permit an additional sign for a tenant within the library. As council will recall, the master sign plan for those buildings were approved by council in August of previously approved by council, thus making any amendments also required to come before council for approval. So I think everyone's familiar with our site of the library and the garage. The applicant is proposing to install a projecting sign on the exterior of the building located along at that east entry point. So South High Street is at the bottom of the screen, and Rockcrest is running sort of north and south on the right-hand side. So you can see the proposed sign is an 8-square-foot projecting sign. It meets the height and clearance requirements as well as the size requirements. It is a metal finished background with then a push-through internally illuminated graphic as well as then routed text. So there's some dimensionality to the sign. And as I mentioned, it's located at that entrance, and I have a graphic here that shows the location of that, and obviously then the clearance and the total height of the sign, which meets the code requirements. So staff is recommending approval of this with no conditions, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Very good, thank you. Questions, comments of council?
Is this identical to the sign they have in their other location?
If the logo and all of that, the graphics are the same, I don't know about the exact size of that, but it would be pretty similar, yes.
But it's on brand for them? This is what
Yes,
they're
it meets their
trying to do.
requirements.
Yeah, I think it's distinctive, and you certainly don't know that the coffee shop's there without some signage. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, and the applicant had that concern. They have a coffee shop in other libraries with no exterior signage, and they don't do as well without a sign on the building.
Is the illumination sort of a red glow? Is that how it would illuminate? Just curious. I mean,
Yeah, so it's a white panel with then red over the top, as I understand that graphic, yeah. So it'll be minimally lit, so you can see it at nighttime.
Other questions, comments? I have one. You know, we over the years have had issue with single-tenant buildings or single-tenant parcels putting additional signs on. I know we had it with Chase Bank, we've had it with Starbucks, and inside of Kroger's, we've had it a number of different ways that we said no to. And so I'm wondering how this is different. Because to me, this is no different than saying, no, Starbucks, you cannot put another sign on the front of Kroger's,
Right.
or Chase Bank, or whoever, you know, they might want to rent. If someone comes and, you know, privatizes the deli and it becomes a Katzinger's Deli inside of Kroger, you know, how are we going to say no to a proliferation of signage on the fronts of these buildings?
That's a great question. So in the Bridge Street Code, we have a provision that would allow a subtenant within a building to have a sign similar to this approved by the reviewing body. We have an example of that also with, is it Mesh Fitness? They have a subtenant who has a individual sign for their use, which is located within the larger tenant space. And it's not accessed separately, which again, our regular code for some of these other buildings, such as where Starbucks is or Chase Bank within a Kroger, are limited. They're not allowed to do that, but the Bridge Street Code allows for that. And again, this being a master sign plan request, they obviously have to get your permission to do that. So that's something that we have to work through with each individual users.
I guess what feels different on this is it's a single-tenant building. On the multi-tenant buildings, there's really an expectation for multiple tenants. This is being a single-tenant building. I think there's more of an expectation for a single sign.
Would this not be like it's bubble tea you're talking
Yes,
about? Is
that's-
that,
yep,
it would be like bubble tea on Mesh Fitness, would it not?
Well, bubble tea could exist without Mesh Fitness. They're not, it has its own access to the sidewalk, and it is an individual tenant space. It could be it could be a clothing store. It could be anything else as well. It doesn't have to be Bubbles Tea, if that tenant were to change.
Again, we would take each of these on a case-by-case basis and make sure that they are, meeting the expectations of council and or the required reviewing body as they come forward.
It does sort of meet the Bridge Street idea, because we spent umpteen million hours talking about these kind of signs and how to make them artistic or how to get them away from the building. And I think it sort of meets that without really interfering with the entire piece of architecture. So I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I think it's fine, too, because we had Heritage Ohio come and talk about the Main Street program and Historic District, and I know that this is not necessarily a historic structure. nor part of the Architectural Review Board, but one of the things that they mentioned is that signage is extremely important to the success of small business. And we have regulated signage to a point that we've gotten so much conformity that we don't have any creativity or imagination. So I'm opening my head up into the historic district area of allowing more creativity, more notification to people on the street, pedestrians, that we have small businesses that need your support. And I think innovative and imaginative and creative signage done in a tasteful and well-done manner is essential to the streetscape. So I'm okay with it.
You know, and I agree with you, Jane, because the Bridge Street was supposed to have like three-dimensional, unusual signage that was totally unique. And we've seen some of that, but not a lot of that. So, you know, it's a good thing to sort of bring that back up, refresh us all back into that, because that was the intent for that kind of density, was to have really neat. I mean, when we talk about, you know, there's a fish house that's supposed to have a, you know, went through every example possible, but, you know, a three-dimensional fish sticking out from the building, and just really clever stuff. So, you know.
And just to respond to that, John, Planning and Zoning Commission members are actually, I believe, pushing the envelope on very creative signage, actually sending people back to the drawing board and say, it's not creative enough. So I think we have to open up a little bit about, I don't know that you'd want to do this all over the city, but certainly in the areas where we're trying to promote that pedestrian urban streetscape, I think you have to kind of let the cat out of the barn a little bit, so.
I'm not a planning and zoning board member, never have been, but from a business standpoint, talking about the Kroger and a Starbucks within the Kroger, I, for one, would want to know that there's a Starbucks there, as opposed to looking on my phone and seeing there's a pin for Starbucks, but I don't know where it is. Am I in the right place? So I can understand you not wanting to have, say, a monument sign or something that's totally cluttered, blinking open and things like that. But perhaps there's a limit on the number of signs that a business can have based on square footage. So, for an example, the Kroger is a very large space. So for them to have one or maybe even two tenants, a bank, for example, it wouldn't seem to me to be overly cluttered to have 3 signs for that large space. Again, that's just me. I understand what your intent is, but I certainly wouldn't want to limit the business flow to any of these small business owners.
Jenny, there wouldn't be any additional signage. I see on the doors here, there wouldn't be stickers on the doors and...
No, and we've been trying to monitor that as well, because I know they're already operating in there, so trying to make sure that if they have anything up, they're taking it down, and we're working through that. Yes, we're very mindful of that as well.
Very good. Any other comments? No, is there a motion on the floor?
I move for approval.
And a second?
I'll second.
Very good. Jenny, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Saludo?
Yes.
Mr. Reiner?
Yes.
Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Staff comments for a mobility update and direction?
Right, yeah, about 3 items tonight from my perspective. One does have to do with the staff report that was in council's packet regarding the mobility study phase 3 overview, and then the next steps regarding phase 4. I won't go back over that report for you since it was in the packet, but staff is requesting that that be referred to your Public Services Committee for review and more discussion. I know, too, that it'll be interesting to see how this plays, given our restrictions and so forth we're under right now, as we'll have an RFP process that we need to be moving forward with regard to our existing rideshare program. So we'll need to get probably a little innovative about that and how you might want to conduct committee meetings going forward. It kind of raises that topic as well, but nonetheless, asking this be referred to Public Services Committee, and we could discuss at a later date how to pull that together.
Very good. I also wanted to make mention, we had something removed from our agenda this evening, so if anyone's out there waiting a bated breath for our conversation regarding the fee waiver request, that has, we've received a request for that to be removed from our agenda. So I don't know if that will appear at a later date, but it will not appear this evening. Okay, anything else?
That would be all, and as far as that goes.
Okay. Questions from council, comments on the mobility phase 3 overview?
Do you need a motion to do that?
If there's no discussion, we'll move to a motion on the floor.
So I'll move to send that to Public Services for discussion.
In a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ms. Ludo. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Reiner? Mr. Peterson? Ms. Aludo? Vice Mayor DeRosa?
Yes.
Mr. Keeler?
Yes.
Mayor Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Ms. Fox?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, council committee reports. Planning and zoning, Jane?
Actually, I had two more
I'm
items,
sorry.
if you don't mind. Yeah, I
Apologize.
just wanted to, Nick is going to pull up a photo. We were very pleased to entertain the Irish Coast Guard here this last week. I tell you what a great visit with these folks. We were very proud that they were here, but on the other hand, I felt very sorry for them. I'll tell you that story here in a second. But the Irish Coast Guard is a very interesting service. Look it up if you get a chance. But these are very dedicated public servants, really near and dear to my heart. They really kind of in between. They're not volunteer military as they might be in the United States, being Coast Guard, or actually the Coast Guard now falls under our Department of Homeland Security. But this is also really more of a civilian agency, much attuned to volunteer firefighters, maybe is how I would look at it. But these are folks that you're looking at on the screen who serve in other civilian capacities, but volunteer for the Irish Coast Guard, putting themselves at risk on a routine basis, bringing those skill sets and learning new ones to serve on the coast and the inland waters of Ireland and serving much like our Coast Guard does and providing maritime search and rescue. So an incredible group of folks. They did bring us this nice gift, which I'll share with you. It's a beautiful gift. I tell you, look at their logo. It's very cool. It's got an anchor, but then it's got a sail attached to it that's kind of made out of the Irish harp, which is just really cool. Great bunch of folks, really inspired by their commitment to public service, and it was great to have them here, as really first responders as well, and bringing that culture here and that service here. And they were going to march in our parade. So here's what happened. So well, get this. They came into Boston first. They were going to march in the Boston parade, and they had before. And they, of course, that got canceled. Then they drove pretty much all night to get here, only to find out that ours had been canceled. And everything had lined up perfectly for them, that they could have flown back to Dublin, Ireland, and marched in that parade, but that parade was canceled too. So we did our best to entertain them while they were here and just enjoy having them. And the gentleman on the far left, he has a relative in Reynoldsburg and had been here a couple times and had made the connection with Trish Lackey and with Allison and the folks in our that do the St. Patrick's Parade and so forth, and that's where the connection was made. So it was just a real honor to have him here. And I did give him a key to the city on your behalf. I hope that was okay, and a couple other trinkets. So we had a great time visiting. So with that, I'm going to ask Matt to come up and share with you the outcome of our bond sale this last week. So Matt, you want to? Sure.
Good evening,
It'd be real
Council.
interesting, given all the volatile market situation, everything that was going on.
The municipal advisor discussed with me that was one of his most interesting weeks ever, and that's not really what you want to hear from your municipal advisor. But we were able to go to market on March 11th and competitively sell our bonds. We ended up with a true interest rate of 2.44%, which is historically an excellent rate. It's not quite as good as I think we thought we were going to do, but it is a fantastic rate. The coupon rate on these bonds is going to be 3%, which is significantly less than the 5% we budgeted. So our annual payments on the income tax debt should be about $260,000 less than we had budgeted, and on the sewer debt about $75,000. And I'm available for any questions.
And that's less than what we had been getting the last two rounds of sales that we did, correct?
Yeah.
So, given the market where it was, like you said, we thought we were going to get better, but then it took a little bit of an upturn. But I think we fared pretty well, given where we've done it before. So just wanted him to report that out. Thank you, Matt. And that's all I have.
Very good, thank you. Okay, on to committee reports. Planning and zoning, Jane? I don't have anything. Administrative, Kathy?
We have a few finalization items on the retreat notes and things like that I'll send out to folks. Thank you.
Okay, Community Development Committee, John? Finance Committee, Christina?
Nothing this time.
Public Services, Jane? CODA, Kathy?
I just wanted to begin by thanking the CODA team. I mean, like everyone else who's responding to the needs of the community, that has been a very dynamic set of needs and organizations. I will tell you, they are working very, very hard for safety and making sure that the buses are cleaned many, many times a day and keeping folks safe, both the employees and the riders. The other thing that I would note is they are making service line changes and route time changes as need be to match demand and to match need. And I know there are changes to the 73 line, which is the line from here, particularly the express line downtown. And I was just out on their website, and they have announced some new times on that. So I'll just thank folks in advance for continuing to check that. And again, appreciation to that team and all the other teams that are working so hard to get people where they need to be in these times. So thank you.
Very good. Friendship Association, Christina and Andy?
No, in fact, our next meeting has been canceled because of social distancing.
Okay. Morpsey, I did receive a call from William Murdoch today, and they're going to be looking at consolidating some of the municipal efforts, perhaps, and best practices and sharing. So I know as soon as we finalize and are ready to really implement some of our practices with city council meetings and public engagement and those things, we'll want to share that with them as well. They're trying to help some of the smaller communities and perhaps more rural communities come up with best practices of things that they can implement. So we will look forward to that in the coming days. Logan, Union, Champaign County, Andy?
Nothing to report?
33 Corridor, Kathy Jane?
Nothing.
Arts Council, John? We heard from the Arts Council this evening.
Yeah, we heard from Dr. Dave that really we've got the building closed down, so we're sort of at a standstill. So you have to practice your arts at home.
Very good. Board of Education, Greg?
I just want to thank Dr. Hoadley. You know, he has an enormous organization that he's running. When you take his employees and then all of his students on top of that, and sort of out of nowhere, but much quicker than I think he anticipated, their operation was shut down. And he puts out a ton of information with respect to what to do, not only to keep you safe, but to try to keep these kids engaged and educated. And, you know, I told my son, he's like dancing out to the car when the school got closed. And I said, well, buddy, when they decide summer is now canceled and you're going back to school, this isn't going to be so much fun. And then that's when he got real serious. And he's like, well, maybe this online school thing is a good idea after all. And so they're going to kick that off on Wednesday. I just, Dr. Hoadley and the board and the organization that they've got completely mobilized, they just do an extraordinary job. I just wanted to give him a quick thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Washington Township Liaison, Jane?
Yes, Eric Richter, the Township Administrator, and the Chief didn't come this evening because of the virus, but I do have a little update. Washington Township's Board of Trustees, they have, and the department has closed all of their township facilities and limiting, access to only township building employees. Their public meeting rooms, all the meeting rooms are canceled, all scheduled events are canceled till further notice. Their public education and community services, car seat installation appointments, station tours, special events, fingerprinting services are currently suspended. The community CPR classes scheduled on March 17th and April 15th have been postponed, and the April 7th unit Until Help Arrives class has been postponed. I know that they're working very closely with the police department and the dispatch service, and in coordination with NRAC, the Northwest Regional Emergency Communications Center. They have put in place their emergency action plan when it comes to protecting their fire department personnel and making sure that they are taking all precautions to be sure that their employees are protected as well as all those they service on their runs. So I think they're they're doing exactly what we're doing here and taking care of business, and I think we should feel confident that they'll be able to do that very well. Thank you.
I think the long and the short of that is wherever you go these days, you should probably call first. I know in the private sector and the public sector as well, you hear Nike, Abercrombie and Fitch, REI, and so forth closing. So good word to whether it's a government entity or a private sector to call before you go. Okay, Dublin Bridges, we'll stick with you, Jane.
No, they're still serving the community, and I think this is one place that they may be able to partner to help one another, but I know that they're working with their partners, but trying to keep everybody safe. Thank you.
Very good. Veterans Committee, John.
All the meetings have been canceled, and also, as an adjunct, all the veterans talks at the rec center have been canceled by the veterans, so till future notice.
Okay. This will be interesting, the complete count committee. This timing is really
Not
terrifically
great.
difficult for them, for everybody, and them included.
Yeah, so we received a communication from Mark Boyd, who's our Philadelphia Regional Census Center Partnership Specialist, that we are to cancel our complete count committee meetings, which, thank you, Homer, for helping me out with that. He wanted us to just remind the public in every way that we can, through social media, through phone calls, not knocking on doors, that folks should have started receiving their census materials in the mail on the 12th of this month, that you can complete that census by phone, by mail, or right online with the census ID number that comes on the thing that you get in the mail. So there's no need for anybody to have to actually physically come in contact with a person. It's still critically important that people do fill out the census, and so I think you'll see a lot more marketing materials coming out digitally from the Census Bureau, but that was what he asked us to pass along, and so there you have it.
Okay, well, stay tuned, I suppose. Okay, council roundtable. We're all out of order, so Andy, if it's okay, I'll just start with you up there if you have items for discussion.
You know, this is uncharted territory for everyone. I'm a firm believer in plowing ahead, and we'll all be okay. So I guess in the back of my mind, I wonder, as these meetings get canceled, you know, at some point, depending on how long this thing drags on, do we explore other options for meeting, you know, interactively, webinars, whatever, so that we can kind of keep the ball rolling, knowing that this thing will pass, and we need to be in position when it does.
Jennifer, is there anything you want to add to that? There's been an Attorney General's opinion come out, been under discussion, and so we're looking for some more guidance relative to how we can conduct public meetings in this sort of modified situation.
Attorney General Yost issued an opinion on Friday saying that participation in public meetings, that he felt that the in-person requirement could be suspended during this pandemic. It wasn't an official opinion. It doesn't change state law. So he held a conference call with a series of law directors this afternoon and said that he would talk to the governor about formalizing that opinion in an executive order or some other. But I think there are other states that have already done that. It's my understanding that I believe City of Columbus actually had a majority of their members participate by phone tonight. So it's evolving, and Attorney General Yost did also say in that conference call that he would step in if a city was sued because they followed the guidance in that letter and would participate as an amicus, but didn't feel that those lawsuits would necessarily be successful anyway. But definitely, I think these types of meetings are on the horizon.
And the mayor and I did allude to it, I believe, in our opening comments, that we will do all we can to leverage technology to enable that. Certainly encourage our residents to monitor the website as they normally would regarding public meetings and the statuses. And if you see the agenda, assuming we'll have other agendas going forward, of course, certainly submit comments in advance. We're trying to set up, we were actually going to test it tonight, but the possibility of people being able to email in questions and then we could respond to them. So those are the kinds of things that we definitely will do going forward. And I think we can get that sort of thing up and running sooner rather than later, so.
Very good. Thanks. Jane?
Once again, it's an unusual situation, and one of the things that once we get past the technicalities of making sure that everybody is safe, protected in their homes, and we're not transmitting disease, I think this is an opportunity. And David, I would say, when you talked about art and how it makes people happy, now, once we get over the hump of trying to get everything settled, we have a lot of people at home in isolation. And I think this is an opportunity for some of our partners, and say Dublin Bridges, and many of our partners, Centero, to begin to think about how we think about the mental health of people that are isolated. And art in public places could be spontaneous music on the streets. I don't know if you saw Italy. They're singing out their balcony windows to make each other feel socially engaged. We have great opportunity for something like that, and I think we do have to think about people's physical health, but we have to think about people's mental and emotional health too. So I challenge us to throw creative ideas forward to see how we can make our city feel happy in the midst of an anxious time. So that's what I would like to bring forward.
That's great, and I threatened to do that off my front porch this weekend, and my wife and daughter said, we're worried about the emotional health of our neighbors, so don't do it. But anyway, absolutely, and those are the kinds of things in future operations that we have got to. We'll welcome any and all ideas, so get those to us as well. And I also want to take the opportunity, since you bring that up, to say to our homebound and elderly and others who may feel challenged or isolated, that we are working that issue. In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow, and I know that the schools are also addressing the reduced and free lunch program and delivery and so forth, because under the federal declaration, they're able to better to use that funding still despite schools being closed. So there's some good decisions around that. They're enabling that sort of thing to be leveraged more. So we are working together and working with the schools on those kinds of things as well.
Right. And just to add to that, I think it's important that we as a city, whenever things like this happen, people worry about uncertainties, and what normally comes out of that is that the goodness of people rises to the surface. So check in on your neighbor, call the elderly people next door, put your teenagers to good work, do a little for somebody else, and you'll lift us all up. That's what I would suggest.
Thank you. John?
I want to thank Dana again for his leadership and the staff during this crisis. It's been very stressful, and I think we ought to keep the businesses in our prayers, and the management and the employees, because I think this is going to be a very difficult time to keep them profitable against their expenses. So in any way we can support them, I think it's great. And those people who own businesses are going to be under huge stress, so let's keep them in our minds. Thank you.
Christina?
Thank you. Just to piggyback a little bit off of what Jane was saying, I happened to be driving through a Muirfield neighborhood over the weekend, and there was a big sign. John, close your ears. It doesn't fit with Muirfield's sign codes. There was a big sign that a neighbor had put together that said, hey, my name is Mark. If you're self-quarantining because of symptoms or because you're an older adult and you need help running to get groceries, text me or call me, and put his phone number. Wow. Yeah. So I would just encourage folks, if they know they have an elderly neighbor or just an older adult who probably should stay home, give them a call and just talk to them so they know that they're still attached to the society. Offer to get them some groceries if you can. Those little gestures will mean a lot in the long run as we go through this process. Additionally, with the free and reduced lunch, those lunches are not just for pickup, breakfast and lunch for kids who are in the free and reduced program. It's actually for all children who show up with an adult. So that's really important. There are some unemployment changes that have been made. There's no longer a one-week waiting period, and I don't know if we want to put some of those resources on our website. There's also opportunities for small businesses and nonprofits who are struggling because, you know, they're not bringing in the revenue that they would normally bring in to obtain very, very low-interest loans. So those are some things that can help keep these businesses and nonprofits afloat until things turn around. So I just wanted to mention those. Some of those things are already happening and already in place. There's certainly legislation at the state and federal level to potentially help folks who either get sick and don't have time off or don't have enough paid time off. So those things I know are coming, so people should definitely be looking out for those as well. Thank you.
Very good, thanks. Greg?
I got a notice while we were in this meeting that Rick Fry, a common pleas judge, has denied the governor's TRO to postpone the election tomorrow until June. So I imagine we'll find out later what exactly that means. They would probably provide other kinds of options, absentee voting and extended hours and things like that. But as far as moving the entire thing from tomorrow, that's not going to happen. It's going to go forward. So I just encourage everybody to get on the appropriate websites and find out what to do.
So if I could jump in on that
Yes.
just real quick, since that's the case, I just would remind our residents, we have 2 polling sites that are in city facilities. One is here at City Hall, the other one is at the Rec Center. We've already made the adjustment to make sure that those are open, should the Board of Elections show up tomorrow and want voting to happen. So we're going to be ready to go either way. So just really stay tuned to those decisions should they promulgate overnight or early in the morning. Thank you.
And I got a strange sense of comfort out of this. So earlier today, I got an email, and this would only happen in the United States of America. A business, and it'll just go unnamed, has already put out a marketing plan for how they will provide their entire menu, curbside service, and a whole menu and a procedure, and this is where you call, and this is where you pull into the parking lot, and we'll be able to help you. And I mean, it is that kind of, this is the United States of America that will overcome all of this. And it just brought me a weird sense of, well, maybe we're not going to, you know, this company is taking this opportunity to take care of people that they generally take care of. And it was just sort of comforting to me to know that private industry is going to respond to this as well. And finally, thanks to Dana, it is extraordinary to have such a cool and sure, calm hand at the helm. And we are all extremely fortunate to have you there, General. So that's it.
Very good, thank you. Kathy?
Yes, thank you, Dana. Thanks to all the staff. Thank you, Chief, for keeping us safe, and feel very confident that as things change, we'll respond, we'll change together. Over the weekend, I had the opportunity to go out for some walks and some jogs, and, you know, we know we have wonderful walking paths in the city. We know we have wonderful nature, as we were talking about earlier, and as this drags on, the opportunity to go out for a walk and say hi 10 feet away to your neighbor and your friend, I encourage us all to do this, because it's a long way to go. And one of the things I decided I was going to do, I'm just going to write lots of letters to friends I haven't written letters to in a long time. So there's lots of communications, but nothing kind of makes me happier than to get a card in the mail or a letter in the mail. So we all have those types of things, so share them with each other, because just a little card with a smiley face on it just might make someone who can't leave their senior home smile. So thank you all very much for all that you're doing with it for us, Dana. Thank you.
We all appreciate your cards. I know I appreciated the one I received from you last week, so thank you for that. You
And
put
the
your money where your
reason,
mouth is.
and the reason she received it is it was her
Yeah,
birthday. So
good
we wish
times.
her a happy birthday.
So last Wednesday, after we videotaped the State of the City, I did a ribbon cutting for Urban Air, and met this lovely woman who had 5 children, who lives in Belle Fountain, who had put her life savings into opening Urban Air on Wednesday. It actually opened to the public on Saturday. And I say that just to echo some of my other colleagues' comments, is these are very trying times, particularly for our small business people. And I did receive some communication from the visit that I had made from Deputy Director William Crozier, and just, I know that our, excuse me, our economic development folks will be circulating the information that's available to help small business. I think those packages are going to be expected to become available sometime this week. So certainly our thoughts, nothing drives this community like small business. I can't recall all the numbers off the top of my head, but I know you would think that our large employers were the most significant in the city, but actually it is the small business person that is the fuel to the economic engine that is the city of Dublin. So our economic development team will be doing all that they can to circulate that information, to provide whatever packages might be available to those folks. With that, stay safe, and we will adjourn.